Penguin Random House Audio presents Godwin, a Novel by Joseph O'Neill. Read for you by Karen Chilton and Kirby Heyborne. L. Wolfe was behaving strangely with clients and coworkers. Annie, my co-lead, thought we should give him a written warning in accordance with our guidelines. In her opinion, a recent incident crossed the line. I was more cautious. A written warning was a big step. I felt it would be more constructive and less destabilizing to our community to offer Wolfe a measure of support. He was a long-standing member of the group. This was the first time that he'd had any real issues with his workplace deportment. I suspected he was having the kind of difficulties that all of us face at one time or another. I told Annie I'd meet him for a coffee and try to find out what was going on. I had no deep feelings about Wolfe. I wished him well, of course, but I barely knew him, even though we'd been colleagues for 7 years. Like many of our more experienced members, he worked from home and came to the office only for the occasional meeting. He'd say very little and leave at the first opportunity. That was fine. Members were under no obligation to get involved in the group's internal administration. The group, officially the P4 Group, was founded in 2004 as a technical writing cooperative. The cooperators were known as members. Each member paid the group a flat monthly subscription, plus an annual contribution that was calculated as a percentage of their earnings. In return, the group managed members' client relations, including fee negotiation and billing, provided them an office where they could meet colleagues and clients, and gave them a stronger brand presence. It's more professional for a technical writer to be identified as a part of an organization with an impressive website. A collective like the group is attractive to someone who wants to stay self-employed, but doesn't want the risk, hassle, and isolation associated with being a sole trader or freelancer. The term freelance sounds good, but most folks find the reality stressful and not at all free. To become a member, a writer had to demonstrate their personal and professional suitability. That wasn't as forbidding as it sounded. If you were a technical writer who did okay during the 3-month probationary period, you would very likely be offered membership. We were always looking to take on new people. Our turnover was significant. Technical writing is hard and not for everyone. Annie and I were the group's co-leads. If a prospective client contacted the group, it was the co-lead's job to handle the approach on behalf of the membership. If a member asked for help with their practice, it was our job to handle that too. Annie managed one half of the members. I took care of the other half. None of it was easy. When the group's membership increased, our responsibilities as co-leads also increased. Meanwhile, our compensation stayed flat at around $20,000 PA. Annie and I did not make an issue of it. We were ready to accept part-time pay for a full-time job out of idealism. Idealism, if it's real, means extra work. When we started out, our ideals were foggy. The 4 founders, Annie and I plus 2 others, were women. But we did not attach importance to that fact. We did not see ourselves as feminists. We saw ourselves as a quartet of competent women. If anything, we were embarrassed by the absence of men, and we made a push to recruit them. They were needed because we were busy right away. There are countless medical scientific entities based in Greater Pittsburgh, and they all could use help with their technical and commercial literature. We were much more successful than we'd anticipated. Soon, we needed to be more systematic, more institutional. In 2006, Annie and I produced the group's Constitution, Rules, and Guidelines for Co-operators. It took a year to put it together, but what fun we had. We learned so much. The truth is, we had not thought deeply about what we were doing. We started the cooperative not because we'd read history books or gone to political meetings, but because we needed to make a living. And a setup like the group's struck us as obviously good. We were not ideological. But I found it very interesting to learn about the Rochdale Society and the history of cooperatives. Annie and I agreed that the cooperative movement's traditional principles should be affirmed in the guidelines and put at the center of the group's identity. It worked very well. As our reputation grew, assignments arrived from clients all over the country. Medical writing had been our core business, but now we took on installation manuals, feasibility studies, and technical reference guides. We also began to offer grant writing services. That's where Mark Wolfe came in. Everyone knew him as Wolfe, as if he were a TV detective. He had charisma. The younger newcomers to the group were intrigued by this blond, rangy man in his late 30s who was often sighted with his dog and, less often, with his beautiful partner and their young child. Men esteemed Wolfe on account of the rumors that he'd spent 2 years in Antarctica. Even cooler, it was said that he was friends with the professional skateboarder Heath Kirchard. Years ago, the two of them had reportedly been spotted fooling around in the little skate park in Polish Hill in the middle of the night. The Antarctica rumor wasn't true. I'd seen Wolfe's human resources file, but I kept this knowledge to myself. It's nice to believe that we have admirable workmates. What I saw when I looked at Wolfe was a member with output issues. His gross earnings hovered around $37,000 a year. This wasn't due to any lack of ability. Our fees-generated metric had identified him as the group's most efficient grant writer, the writer most likely to write a successful grant. Other metrics contradicted this status, but this isn't the place to go into the problem of how best to measure a worker's overall productivity, a problem that becomes even more interesting in a collective such as the group, where we had our own ideas about what constitutes value. The detail of Wolfe's curriculum vitae that spoke to me, as his contemporary, was that as an undergrad he'd studied, at Carnegie Mellon, like so many of us at the group, molecular biology. It was a thrilling field back then, in the first half of the 1990s. Everyone was excited by Kary Mullis and his work on the polymerase chain reaction. Mullis tried to be a fiction writer and a baker before finally dedicating himself to science. He became famous not only as a Nobelist, but also, unfortunately, as a crackpot. I arranged to see Wolfe away from the office. He suggested Lily Cafe, around the corner from his home in Polish Hill. The neighborhoods of Pittsburgh have a proud and competitive character, and Polish Hill is one of the proudest, the kind where for sale signs are removed or vandalized. Our meeting took place on a worryingly warm January morning. To signal that the usual formalities didn't apply, I wore a cotton dress with blue checks that I would never wear to the office. I arrived punctually. 15 minutes went by before Wolfe, wearing torn-up blue jeans and a white undershirt, turned up with a big old brown and black mutt named Pearson. Pearson wore a red bandana in the place of a collar. He lay down without a tether at the perimeter railing of the terrace. Wolfe seemed agitated when he sat down. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Would I mind, Wolfe said abruptly, if we moved outside? He did not want to leave Pearson alone. Good idea, I said. We relocated to a table in the sunlight. Wolfe immediately began to interact with his dog. Pearson responded with remarkable obedience to his human's highly specific commands. In fact, There was
Sample complete. Ready to continue?